Yo, what's up, YouTube? We are back, me and Luna. We have basically been grinding the new war bond ever since it's come out. We've been trying out all the weapons on all the factions. And in this video, what I want to do is do it a little differently. Not just your typical like war bond review where I just give my opinions on it and like say if it's worth it or not. I kind of want to throw it into more of like a tier list area where I'm going to go through every item in the war bond one by one. And I'm going to rank them like I would if I was doing a tier list at that moment on each faction. So we'll start with bugs, then we'll do bots, then we'll do illuminate for every single stratagem, weapon, so on and so forth inside the war bond. And at the end, I'll try to kind of give you like my final thoughts and a rating of sorts. We're going to start off with the Pacifier. It is a medium pen stun oriented assault rifle. The way I describe it to people is that it is somewhere between a pummeler and a Liberator carbine, and well, I guess Liberator carbine and Liberator penetrator, right? So it's got like all these elements all at the same time. I think my friend and employee needs to go check out the birds. All right, so it's somewhere in between because it got the fire rate, it's got the medium pen, but then has the stun factor of the pummeler. I think overall it does feel relatively good if you value stun. Also, side note, the stun will feel a lot better if you play in multiplayer. If you play in solo, it will take more bullets from your individual gun to stun an enemy. It's a weird bug. I've told the devs about it. Hopefully they can address it. But for now, using it in a team environment, it feels quite good. Starting off with bugs, I'd honestly put it somewhere around B+. I think the fire rate and the overall like stun of it, I tend to like just do like 3-round bursts on enemies if there's like a lot of enemies in front of me, and I can just stun them all very quickly because of the fast fire rate. And when they're stunned, it makes it easier to hit those like weak spots, heads, mouths, so on and so forth. So like even during predator bugs, it feels very good. The damage might be low, but you could be more accurate while doing that damage, right? So for other weapons, they might have a greater DPS, but the bug is moving around. It might be hard to hit. You might be trying to like lunge at you. You're panicking, you're using stims, so on and so forth. This saves you a lot of stims against like brood commanders that you can take off their head and they'll still be stunned. Or a stalker that's running at you can stun them, go for the mouth, they die incredibly fast. So I've been really enjoying using it just for like a passive, pun intended, weapon to use throughout bugs. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as like a full AR that I use all the time because the damage can feel quite low and you go through ammo quite fast. And I would definitely like to see a larger magazine upgrade, like maybe like an extended mag for 50 rounds and short mags for 30. But here's hoping that they will do that in the future. Yeah, overall, I'd say B+. I think you could be maybe more generous to it, maybe put it A- for like specifically predator bugs. It does perform quite well on predator bugs, maybe even A, if you've been really enjoying it. But I think as an overall ranking across the entire thing, medium pen does tend to be quite useful, and the damage does, it is respectable. It's a lot better than like, I know it's the lowest damage, but there is a respectable amount of damage that comes out of it due to the 700 fire rate, and it has a lot of stun potential. So yeah, B+, A-, somewhere in that range. A probably for predator. Going into bots, it definitely more underperforms on bots, just due to like the lower durable damage and things of that nature. Versus devastators, you don't really want to go for leg shots. It takes about like a quarter of the mag to kill one for the leg. So you're going to want to go for like the front faceplate, which can be a little hard due to how many shots you actually need to land in order to get that kill on the front faceplate. I believe it's 3 or 4, which can be a tall ask. But hey, if you're pretty accurate and you can do a lot of modifications to this weapon. I have the vertical foregrip and the muscle brake. I found that one to be very enjoyable. As far as scopes, I think either 2 or 4x can be very useful on the bots. But yeah, I think flashlight is also a fairly good option if you wanted to decrease the recoil a little bit more. Ergonomics is not really a play in this unless they give us magazines, so it is what it is. On bots, though, it does fairly good against the devastators themselves. Scout strategy shooting the rockets for the most part. It obviously like the low tier bugs and stuff like that. One thing I was quite disappointed on was taking out a turret, like a cannon turret. It took like 3 mags. It was pretty disappointing. And I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. I might be anecdotal on that part, but might just be the extremely low durable. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but yeah, it's probably like a B to B minus kind of weapon on bots. It's not terrible. You can definitely use it for more of like a CC oriented. I didn't even mention it's not particularly great for gunships, which you're typically bringing a lot of primary weapons for nowadays. It's like a mag and a bit, even with like good tracking on those gunships. So probably B minus. Not the biggest fan overall, but I don't think it's like unusable. You know, just lean into the stun more probably for like berserkers and stuff. Next, illuminate. Definitely a little bit of an upswing. It is quite effective versus voteless, but what isn't? It does work very well versus the overseers, just because it's medium pen. And if you guys don't know, their heads are medium pen. And because it stuns very quickly, you can very easily like stun them anywhere, like shoot them like 2 to 3 times, stun them. And then immediately right after, nail them in the head with like 5 or so rounds, and then they're dead. Elevated overseers in particular feel very good when using this weapon. You can stun lock them and then take them out. One of the 2 of the parts that it definitely, or I guess 3 of the parts that it definitely has some trouble with is that because of the damage output, it doesn't do particularly well against harvesters, doesn't do particularly well against flesh mobs, too many mags, probably not even worth it. It does stun them, but if you piss them off too much and they go into like their enraged mode, you can't stun them anymore unless you have like gas. So that's definitely a downside. And also taking out shields, it doesn't quite have enough damage to take out like a shield of of the ground ships for their installations. So typically what I do is I dump a mag of this and then I swap to my secondary. That hopefully is enough. Usually is. It's like that close. That's why I keep asking. If this gained a 50 round magazine, it would actually hit like better breakpoints on that. So yeah, for illuminate, I'd probably put it somewhere close to like B plus still, even though it doesn't perform as well as other medium pen weapons, just because it performs so nicely against overseers in particular. If you have good aim, I feel like it does delete quite a few overseers quite effectively, or just like CC locks them, right, which is really nice. You can also stun watchers to stop them from calling in reinforcements. So there's that as well. Decent weapon overall. I do hope to see like better modifications in the future to kind of like iron out some of like the inconsistencies. But if you see people absolutely shitting on it, I think a lot of people are just either playing it solo or testing it solo, which does affect its performance, especially on the stun component, which is the most important, or they're just not valuing stun very much. And that's going to be personal preference. This weapon is not going to be for everybody. It's a more support, like lock them in place, then hit a weak spot kind of weapon. Going on to the next part of the Warbond, we will be talking about the overall armor. We get a light and a medium inside the Warbond and a heavy outside with the Superstore. 25% less damage to your chest. That's a flat damage decrease. And that's like against everything that hits your chest, which is interesting. Provides 25% resistance to explosive damage, which is a half perk technically, and then reduces damage from bleeding. Okay, unpacking this. The 25% damage for chest can be quite useful, especially for like bots, if you're taking damage either from running away and they're shooting you in the back, or from the front. But I find, remember, this is kind of like a PUBG issue. If you've ever played PUBG, your arms are technically out in front of your chest, or at least your upper chest. So when you're getting shot at, your arms are going to be taking a lot of damage instead of your chest. So that perk might not always be helping you. Obviously, like your lower stomach will be resorbing some of that and be playing into that. But this is mostly for like your back or like lower stomach, which is not a huge amount of where you're getting shot, I find. I take a lot of damage either because of my legs for explosions or my arms because I'm taking like just shots from the front. So it can be good, I think, against like bugs if the bug is specifically hitting your chest, but I find they're usually like aiming down, hitting your head, or like nipping at your legs and stuff like that. So that won't really help too much. For bugs, it's probably somewhere in the B tier. I think like the chest damage is interesting. The explosive damage is not going to be super useful for bugs. It can have some effect for like impalers deal explosive damage to some extent. And then if you've ever died to an arm from an impaler, it says explosive damage, like explosive. So just a heads up on that. And then the last part being prevents damage from bleeding. I gotta say, I think I've died to bleeding like 5 times ever in this game. It just happens so infrequently that I can't care about it. I feel like it's a dead third perk. I wish it was more useful, honestly. Instead of it dealing like less damage from bleeding, I would almost say like EMS resistance, arc damage resistance. Imagine it had 25 or 50% arc damage resistance, just enough to like, be interesting. That would be cool to me. So yeah, probably B tier, something like that. I don't think it's like terrible for bugs, but I also don't think it's like one of the better perks. It's like middle of the road. For bots, I think it has more usage just because you tend to be getting, I at least tend to get hemorrhages, like the chest cavity damage more often on that one. Explosive damage obviously is more beneficial on bots, and chest damage, you're getting shot more often. And I find they tend to try and aim center mass. So there's more there. Illuminate, same kind of thing. I'm probably going to put it across the board in B tier, probably B+ to A- for bots, more or less. And then Illuminate, like I said, it's going to be very similar to like, it's a mixture of both because they have projectile damage and they have some amount of like melee damage. So it's like kind of a mixture, mixed bag on the Illuminate front. Going into the GL, the De-escalator support weapon. It's very interesting. I've seen a lot of discourse on this weapon, and it's kind of hard for me to rate it because there's currently a bug with it. If you are in group play, it does significantly more damage, 2 to 3x more damage versus Bile Titans and Factory Shredders. We've tested this on stream, and it's probably a reason why you've been seeing such polarizing information on it. Some people are absolutely hating it in the content creator community, and some people are loving it. Overall, I think it's like completely busted. But if you remove the fact that it can like 5 to 6 shot a Bile Titan if you aim around their head in group play, or like 3 to 4 shot their belly of a Factory Shredder, or like around 10 shots to the eye of the Factory Shredder, it still performs quite nicely. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to rate it assuming that they fix the bug where you're doing additional damage to those enemies, and rate it like with it currently how it is. All right. So starting with bugs, it performs extremely well against smaller tier enemies. It does chain to many like small scavengers, hunters. It'll one-shot a lot of them. Brood commanders, it breaks down a little bit more. They're a little tankier. If you do direct impacts to the face, it will one-shot them way more consistently. So typically I will be doing like 3 to 4 round bursts of damage at like patrols, and then reloading immediately afterwards. If I need to do more damage, I will be doing that. For chargers, if you can get behind them, shoot them at the butt, like the lower half of the butt, and they will get stun locked. And then it's like 3 to 4 shots afterwards to destroy their butt. The grenade launcher is a bit of a mixed bag as far as reliability, because it's like an RNG roll on how the arc splits off from the initial explosion. So it's not 100% reliable on how it deals with damage, but I do think it's reliable enough to be good. That being said, going up to impalers, just, aiming at the top of the forehead, not towards the black part, but like the top of where you see like, that whitish pinkish skin, like orangish skin, just aiming there. I think it's around like 4 to 5 on average, I found, which is acceptable. I think it's quite good. And then Bile Titans, it's 5 to 6 shots to the head, 8 or so shots to the, stomach. And then you're looking at like around 20, if you are in solo play. It cannot destroy bug holes, and it cannot destroy like objectives that require explosive damage, which is definitely a knockdown, but I feel like it's so effective on the rest of the faction. It feels really good. One thing I haven't touched on yet is the ammo economy. The ammo economy on it is ridiculous. It gets 40 rounds at base, 6 in the chamber, so 46 total. But then you get 20 shots back if you just pick up a yellow brick on the ground, like the basic ones that you find at POIs. That's insanely good for POI, like, just stratagem weapons. If you use like any other type of weapon, you'll notice that normally for stratagem weapons, you'll get like 1/5, 1/6 at best, sometimes even worse, like 1/8 of your ammo per pickup, like for AMR, for instance, right? So the GL has a really good ammo economy, so much so that I almost never bring it with a supply backpack. I just don't think you need it. It's just not necessary. So it gives it a big bump compared to like the regular GL or like other support weapons that we're going to talk about, alongside, especially on like the bot front, where it obviously competes with some other weapons. My overall standing for it is that on the bug front, I think it's like a solid A+ with the current bug where you're like destroying Bile Titans. I think it touches into S tier. You just got to be careful not to kill yourself. And then you have to be pretty diligent about reloading. Take shots, reload. And while you're reloading, you can take a shot to interrupt it, right? Treat it like the Punisher, right? Where you're just constantly trying to go for a reload. You'll feel like you can very consistently use it. If we're assuming that they're going to remove that bug and fix it and bring it in play with like solo play, it's probably going to be closer to like A-. I still think it's like an extremely good weapon and at times better than the original GL, but it doesn't have as much utility, so it definitely doesn't quite fit there. If it all of a sudden was able to blow up bug holes, I think it would be an easy S tier with the bug and like a middle A without it. Going into bots, this thing shines the brightest, I gotta say. It shines brighter than most heavy pen weapons like Pen 4. It's really strong on the bot front. It shines so brightly. And the main reason for that is that, and then I haven't really seen a lot of people talking about it, it can two-shot Hulks in the eye. Even if you miss a shot, it will stun the Hulk, right? So you can like miss and just hit somewhere on the faceplate on the first shot. And then the next two shots, if you hit towards the eye, you kill it. It makes it an incredibly easy weapon to kill Hulks with. Like easier than like AMR, because with the AMR, obviously they're just going to be shooting at you. They're going to be running at you. So you got to somehow hit that eye while all that's happening. So you might actually feel like you need to bring stun grenades. You don't with this. Like even autocannon. This is way easier to use than autocannon to kill Hulks. That's nuts. Devastators, it does quite effective against them. It's like 2 to 3 shots on average for like a group of Devastators. It deals with Berserkers quite easily, obviously, because it stuns them. Tier 1 bots all get 1 shot. Tanks from the front. You can shoot the front part of a tank turret and destroy it. The Annihilator tanks, the ones that have like the AA one that shoot lasers at you, like the fast firing one, 3 shots to the front part of the turret. Don't shoot like the weapon, like the weapons, like the barrels. Shoot like the side, like cheeks, 3 shots, and it blows up. The normal tank, right? You're just shooting it like on top, like to the front, like face plates. Around 5, maybe a mag, and it destroys it. That's really strong for a weapon like this. I've been jokingly call it the anti-tank grenade launcher because at times it feels like a much better option than like AMR or autocannon and stuff like that to be taking out these targets. It's crazy. It's not going to do well against gunships. Yeah, who would have guessed it? And it actually does really well against rocket striders. It one-shots them very reliably. I think the arc very reliably hits like the rocket pods on the sides, so it's very effective versus them. And then for the factory striders, you're actually aiming at the eye, so you can actually shoot at the guns. It does one-tap the guns underneath the chin pretty reliably, or try and like go underneath and shoot the stomach. Just be careful, obviously. If you're at the wrong angle and you're too close, it will blow you up. The explosion radius on it to kill you is around 13 to 15 meters. So be careful unless you're wearing the arc armor. If you're wearing the arc armor, you could probably go right up underneath that factory strider and just spam it into the stomach. You'll get knocked over a bunch of times, but you'll kill it really fast. It's like 3 shots with the bug. Without the bug, I was getting around 20 or so shots to the eye of a factory strider. I believe it's closer to like 8 to 10 for the stomach. Very effective even without the bug, but my current rating on it is just like basically like an S tier with the bug. Like it's extremely good. Not needing to bring a backpack for like stims and ammo is incredibly good because you can start pairing it with either the shield generator for tankiness. You can start pairing it with like a teammate's backpack that he can bring for you, or you can bring the new Arc Dog. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's great, especially against bots. So I'd say S tier currently. It's really good against bots. I think people are sleeping on it. It makes bots feel really easy if you get used to this thing. It's really good. Just bring stuff to deal with like the flying enemies and you'll be surprised. If you're obviously taking the bug into account and we fix it, it's probably somewhere in like A+ tier. Like it not being able to really do that much damage versus the factory strider does affect it, but I don't think it affects it a ton. So it's probably closer to A+. It does lose some of that like all encompassing, but it's just like ad clear, anti-tank, like stunning enemies, good ammo economy. I don't understand why people are hating on this thing as much as they are. I think people need to give it a chance. It's slept on. It definitely is. And then the last part is Illuminate. It's great versus voteless. It's pretty damn good against the Overseers. Flesh mobs, it's disappointing. It takes like, you know, over a mag sometimes to kill them, depending on how the arc kind of splits. Because it's not dealing explosive damage, and flesh mobs are very weak to explosive damage. So it's kind of like taking a lot of independent shots of the arc thrower. And typically your first shot will enrage them, so you're not really stunning them. Versus harvesters, good. Unreliable for taking out the shields, but if you have another weapon to take out the shields on the harvester, you can very easily 3-tap the leg, like the exposed leg, or multi-kill. I was seeing a couple multi-kills with it. It feels great versus just like basic mobbing versus like the voteless and overseers, but as soon as like a flesh mob shows up, it doesn't feel particularly great, and you might want to have like a crisper or like an eruptor in your primary spot to deal with them. So it's like it kind of falls short. I did try killing an illuminate Leviathan with it. It was, I don't know. I put like 4 mags into it, and then I got frustrated because I was getting ragdolled. By the way, Arrowhead, please revert the ragdoll on the Leviathan. Please, please. It's terrible. So yeah, on the Illuminate front, I'd probably give it like a A-, somewhere in that tier. Like I think for ad clear, it's definitely higher, and it does have some great uses, but it doesn't feel particularly good whenever a flesh mob, and flesh mobs are very common. So that's kind of unfortunate for it. Not a bad choice, but also not a great choice. Stun pods. As far as boosters go, it's on the more disappointing side. I wish the radius was bigger. I think people are just like straight out calling it garbage. I don't think it's garbage, but it's definitely a war bond that it gets better the more you die as a team. If you are a better player who doesn't die very much, obviously you're not going to get much usage out of it. But for someone who likes hot dropping or diving onto enemies and like crushing an enemy and then, you know, guns a-blazing afterwards, it's fairly good for that. If it had a larger radius and a longer stun duration to enemies around it, I think I would enjoy it more. But it's always just going to be a weapon where, or like a booster where it's like the more you die, the more you get use out of it. Yes, it can help out mines or turrets be a little bit safer, but you're not dropping mines on top of enemies all the time, and the radius is so small that it doesn't always affect it. Also for turrets, if you're dropping on top a turret, it doesn't stun an enemy long enough for the turret to deal with the enemy next to it, most likely, so turret might die regardless. So it's okay. B- probably as far as stratagem or like boosters go. It's not going to touch the holy trinity of like vitality, stamina, and hell pod, but I could see a team maybe pick it just for fun, but that's about it. Obviously the drip is amazing. Love these skins. Little bit of a missed opportunity not to put like police lights on it, I gotta say, but all right. Now to the Arc Dog. Overall, fantastic. On every faction, it performs great. It's very good for damage, CC. It's fantastic at just like overall uptime. It shoots every 5 or so seconds. It does have the weird target priority of like other guard dogs where it tends to aim at the lower tier enemies for the higher tier enemies. So it can get to some weird situations like that where like it really wants to shoot that scavenger instead of shooting the predator bug right next to you, which can be frustrating. But overall, it's somewhere in between like an arc thrower and a blitzer. It kind of has the shotgun approach of a blitzer, but it has like pretty good range of an arc thrower. Damage wise, it's probably somewhere in between as well. It does gain the 7 pen of the arc thrower and the grenade arc GL. So it does have tons of pen, and it does stun a charger on one zap. So the CC potential of this is actually very high, sometimes even better than gas in a way, because it will just stun them in place, making them easier to hit, while also doing really good damage. It can one-shot a lot of bugs in one zap. I see some people like complaining that it doesn't shoot fast enough, but honestly, I think if it shot any faster, this thing would like completely outshine all the other guard dogs in existence. By the way, for people that probably will comment on it, the laser guard dog was unintentionally changed. It sounds like it was something like some kind of like bug report that was eventually addressed. They didn't mean to throw it in. It was just something that was accidentally, it sounds like they're most likely just going to revert it, which good call. All right. That being said, Arc Thrower Guard Dog is fantastic versus bugs in general. Love it. I would say like A+S. Like it feels on par with Gas Guard Dog. It's not as effective all the time because of team killing. That isn't a factor, right? And you definitely have to keep that in mind. So that's why I'm leaning more towards A+. But you and your teammates can play around that. You can always press the 5 key or the down button on your controller to immediately get it to stop firing and go on your back. If you notice it's about to fire your teammate, if your teammate runs out in front of you and it's zapping, you know, for instance, like that. You know, I do think that you and your teammates can just play better. That actually is a thing and a factor, right? Just kind of like with the laser guard dog. One thing I will say, I've never seen it zap me. Maybe you guys can let me know down below if it zapped you, but I've never been zapped by my own guard dog. I even tried to get it to. I tried to get a scavenger to sit to my bottom left, and it was just like aiming at it and going in front of me. So it's like I couldn't even get it to zap myself, which is kind of funny. But yeah, A+, you know, maybe S- if you're being, you know, if you're very smart about positioning or you go off by yourself a little bit more. So friendly fire isn't much of a factor. I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of people complain about it being a friendly fire weapon, but I do think you can play better around it. Bots next, surprisingly very good. It's a very consistent stun on Devastators, which opens up Devastator, especially heavy Devastators. They like move their arm, like their shield out of the way. So they're a very easy headshot. So it pairs really well with weapons that need to go for those weak spot hits on Devastators. It stuns Hulks. It can kill a Hulk. And it tends to actually get a good angle because it's elevated. When it zaps them, it tries to aim near the eye. So it can help you kill Hulk straight up, which is insane. It doesn't really do anything versus tanks or faction striders. You'll just ignore that. It'll try to zap a gunship. I don't think it's actually connecting with it. I've never seen it kill a gunship, but maybe it can. But as far as like general mobbing versus like Zerkers, tier 1 bots, and Devastators, fantastic. I think my overall rating against like other stratagems would probably be somewhere in like the A- to A tier. I've been thoroughly enjoying this. I don't think it'll touch like the supremacy of just like having a supply backpack for all those stims and ammo for you and your team, but it's extremely good. And it's definitely, I think, the most effective guard dog on the bot front. Overall, like gas doesn't typically get used all that much because it doesn't have enough range. It doesn't fly far enough out. The Liberator Penetrator guard dog, although good, only has medium pen, and it doesn't always go for eye shots on Devastators. So it's a little bit disappointing and can take a lot of ammo to take out one Devastator. And the Laser Guard Dog typically isn't that good because it only has light pen. So it is what it is. On the illuminate front, it feels fantastic. It deletes Foatless. It can kill like 20 at a time. It's so crazy. Do bear in mind the kill counter at the bottom is bugged. It's yet another guard dog where if it gets a kill against certain enemies, it will sometimes multiply that kill multiple times. So it's sometimes lying to you, but it is very effective. Versus Overseers, it can stun them and kill them after like 2 to 3 shocks, which is not bad. It has like a passive damage to help you out. Pretty damn good. And then for Watchers, it can stun them. It doesn't one-shot them, but it can stun them to stop them from calling in reinforcements, which is cool. It'll stun flesh mobs, but just like with the AR, if they get pissed off, you're not stunning them anymore. You'll need gas. So that's where the gas guard dog will be the more effective. Versus Harvesters, I did have a situation where it killed a Harvester for me. It was weak, but it did kill it. So it will assist you, and it can stun a Harvester. If you're daring and close enough to it, it will stun it, just like with the Arc Thrower. So fairly effective. Obviously, it's not going to do anything versus Leviathans. I think I saw it try to shoot a Stingray. I don't think it did anything though. So keep that in mind. But I think overall in that faction, it's like easy, like A+, maybe even S. I do think the Gas Guard Dog's probably a bit better just overall because it can deal with flesh mobs for you. It just null and voids flesh mobs. So that's why the Gas Guard Dog typically is better. But I do think the Art Dog is fantastic as long as somewhere else in your loadout, you have something to deal with the flesh mob. So I'd say A+, very effective. Now the Urchin. Still a little bit disappointing. It is an upgrade, I think, over the original stun grenade, but not much. Essentially what it is it's somewhere like a stun grenade and a thermite squished together. You stick it to an enemy and then it pulses every couple seconds to re-stun the enemy, which is cool. You can throw it at a charger and it will stun lock it and you can get behind it and shoot it in its butt or something like that, or just run away. That's cool. You can throw it in like a, choke point, a narrow choke point, and it will stun. The radius is not particularly large. As you can see, it's only 4. Chat's kind of in the way, but it's 4 radius compared to like a lot of like stun grenade, I believe is like 6 or 7. So I like it to some extent, but you don't get enough of them. You only get 4. And I largely feel like I would just rather use like a thermite and just kill the charger instead of stunning it. It doesn't stun a Ball Titan. It doesn't stun a tank. It's like it stuns a Hulk, but it's like, why wouldn't I just throw a thermite, right? And I don't think it has enough radius to really affect too many enemies enough. So it's kind of disappointing. It's a cool concept, but I need more stun, either larger radius, more urchins. Like I've been saying for a bit now that if you just gave me more stun grenades, I think I would use them more often, or more urchins. I would be more inclined to use them. But gas completely shits on stun at the moment because it doesn't stun long enough and it doesn't do any damage. So, and I don't expect it to, but it doesn't do any damage. So gas just wins. Also for like things like flesh mobs, gas just wins because it actually can stun them while they're enraged. So stun just kind of sucks. It's probably like somewhere in the B tier for bots. It's has a good amount of effective use in terms of like you can throw it on a bug breach and it'll just continuously stun a bug breach, which is cool. But you could also just do that with a gas grenade and the gas grenade will actually kill the enemies and affect larger tier enemies more. So I just feel like it's an awkward spot. B tier for bugs. For bots, it's probably a little lower, probably B-. I don't find it as effective, and it's where thermites shine even brighter, or just an explosive nade or gas grenade is better. And then for illuminate, it's probably B- as well. Like I'm even maybe being a little bit kind to it because I find illuminate tend to like separate a little more. So yeah, definitely the most disappointing of this warbond is the Urchin, but I'm hoping that there's like some stun changes in the future that can help the Urchin, and just like general like, warbonds getting better over time and aging like fine wine factor hopefully will help the Urchin. So please help it out. All right. My closing thoughts on the warbond is I think it's like, assuming we're talking about the bug in the current state, it's like top 3 warbond. And that might be surprising to some, but it's because there's so many good things jam-packed into one warbond, and the warbond is so universal, right? The Arc GL is great on a lot of factions. The Arc Guard Dog is great in a lot of factions. The AR, although a little bit disappointing in some ways, is great on a lot of factions, right? It has a lot going for it in this warbond. It's jam-packed with a lot of stuff, even a pretty good armor set. Not the best, but a pretty good armor set. So I rate this, like, although it's not going to like take the crown of like beating out like Democratic Detonation, I do think it's at least on par with like an Urban, Legends, or on par with like, I would say even better than Chemical Agents, because it's sometimes more niche of a warbond. I do think it's a really good warbond overall. Like it satisfies a lot of different aspects of the game and creates some very unique loadouts. And in general, I just think the drip of it is also fantastic. But subjectivity aside, I think objectively the warbond has a lot of power jam-packed into it that a lot of warbonds typically don't have. Usually I find warbonds have like 2 good items. A good example of that would be like Chemical Agents. Highly rated as like a great war bond, but it's mostly just 2 items. It's the gas grenade and it's the gas guard dog, right? The new war bond has that, right? We have 2 stratagems that do perform extremely well in a lot of situations. So I think it's like on par with that like tier of war bond where it's like extremely high utility from stratagems, and it has some like pretty good like additives on top of that I do think will get better over time, especially if they can address the bugs. If they do just address the bug flat out for the GL, I do think it'll drop down a little bit more. You know, maybe it'll be more on par with like, you know, a Steeled Veterans or a Cutting Edge kind of war bond as far as purchase. Maybe also on par with like a Servants of Freedom. You know, still great, but not in that like top 3 zone, maybe more of like a top 5 war bond at that point. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the war bond down below. I get the impression that this won't be somewhat divisive, but I highly recommend just giving the GL more of a chance. I think initial first impressions of most people is going to be genuinely somewhat negative, especially if they go solo to try it out. But in a team environment at the moment, it versus Battle Titans and Faction Triders alone is insane. It's comical how good it is versus Battle Titans. Comical. But that aside, it's still very good against Chargers and Hulks and Devastators, regular bugs, Predator bugs. You know, just get used to hitting the R button like a Punisher to just keep reloading it. And the fact that you don't need to bring a supply backpack for a GL feels great. Quickly, the Superstore. We got the Judge Dredd armor. Obviously looks amazing. I think the prices on it weren't too bad, but the main thing that we're going to talk about really quick is the Warrant. The Warrant was a 300 super credit, medium pen guided pistol that was added. 13 rounds in the magazine. Overall, cool concept. Love it. Implementation wise of the guided rounds can sometimes feel a bit iffy if an enemy gets too close to you. It's pretty damn iffy on if it will definitely land. You at that point need to be more accurate. Like you unironically need to be accurate at closer ranges, and at longer ranges it tracks much more effectively because it has more time to adjust essentially. You have a guided mode and an unguided mode. The guided mode works up to about, you know, Hive Lord or a Hive Guard. It will not track to like a Brood Commander for some reason. It will not track to like larger tier enemies. Oddly enough, I don't know why exactly that is. It would be actually really nice to use against a Brood Commander for some reason. It's somewhat effective versus Shriekers and things of that nature. But if the Shrieker is like moving too far left and right, same with Hunters, it will miss. Some enemies benefit more than others because some have their weak points right in front of the tracking point. So like Hunters can get one tapped pretty reliably from it. But then some enemies like a Hive Guard, you know, take like more than half your mag to kill them. So your mileage may vary there. But there's some jankiness with the pistol. If you put it on unguided mode, it will start tracking to enemies that it couldn't previously track to. And then you'll start realizing something weird when it does that. It penetrates and does damage, even though it gives you the deflection symbol. And then you can start doing some weird things where you can actually like unguided shoot at a Hulk. It will pass through the Hulk and do damage to the radiator. So you can actually kill a Hulk with this pistol in this janky form from the front using the unguided way. Very weird, but it's a thing. You can also do this with Chargers and Impalers. It'll take obviously a lot more bullets because they're very tanky, but you can do that. It's very odd that it's like overpenning in that way. It kind of reminds me of like melee weapons, how melee weapons ignore armor and just deal their damage through armor. Yeah, I assume this is going to be fixed. I think this is just like one of those janky, like they added a new gameplay mechanic for the pistol and they implemented it a bit weird and they just didn't realize it was overpenning, or maybe they do. I'm not sure. But yeah, very weird. Because of the weirdness on bugs, I'm probably going to put it somewhere like, assuming the jankiness is still there, it's probably like a B+, because I feel like the jankiness doesn't really apply too much to bugs. You can do some like silly things to like Chargers, but I felt it was very unreliable. Some people tell me they consistently kill Chargers in 2 mags, and I'm like, it's not happening for me. Even when I'm like trying on purpose, like very hard to like go through the leg and hit like the main soft center, but nah, I don't know. It wasn't really working for me. So I'd say somewhere in like B+, A-. Bots, it shines a lot brighter because of like how consistent it is at killing Hulks in the unguided form. Devastators, it will go through their shield. So that's something. Heavy Devastators, that is. So even in the tracking form, it will do that. But it takes so many fucking shots to kill a Devastator that it's very meh. I think it's probably like A minus. If we're including the bug, it'll probably be closer to B, similar to bug. So it'll probably be like B plus after the bug is fixed, because I assume it probably will be. And then illuminate, I think it's probably the brightest the pistol does overall without the jankiness, because it's very good against watchers. It's around 5 shots to kill a watcher. This thing deletes them. Watchers typically don't like dodge too much, left, right, up, down. So the tracking rounds do a very good job at killing them. So if you hate watchers, take this pistol. Elevated overseers, also pretty damn effective. It's not the most effective weapon, so you're typically using around 1 magazine per overseer unless you're getting lucky headshots. But yeah, I like this thing for illuminate. I'd probably give it an A tier, even without the jankiness. I didn't really see the jankiness affect this weapon very much on the bot front. Maybe you could do some silly things like shoot through the shield of a harvester. Just thinking about this now. Maybe we'll test that on stream tomorrow. But yeah, an interesting pistol. It's cool, but I don't know if it's like really worth the 300 super credits for many, but it's definitely cool. And some people I'm sure will love the novelty of just not having to aim. So yeah, but as far as effectiveness, not the most effective weapon in the game. That's my thoughts on the Warbot. Hope you guys enjoyed this tier list, pseudo tier list video. Please come by the stream and let me know what you guys think of it. Let me know down below as well. We go through the comments as well. If you would like, check out the Discord link down below. Consider dropping a like and a sub on the channel. If you've been enjoying the content, we'll be having many more in the future. And don't worry, I am working on the bugs tier list for my primary weapons. That'll be the next video I work on. Much love, YouTube. Bye. Peace.